This is a Flying Cow production. Hello, this is the Great Film Challenge. My name is Clay, and this is Aaron, and we're going to be talking about the movie Mary and Max. What if I just did the whole podcast like that?
I wish I'd practiced more of that voice. I would have gone with the bit.
It's okay. Like I said, this is the Great Film Challenge. I, of course, am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself. And here with me, as always, is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right. I will say, even though I actually already introduced our film, I do want to talk a little bit about some fun film stuff that you and I did recently.
Yeah.
Because today, even though this is May the 4th, there was nothing in the theaters Star Wars related.
Yeah, which I find weird. Even though they just re-aired for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith, but it was last week,
Yeah.
not this weekend.
Kind of.
That weird timing, but whatever. But we did actually go see a film that was celebrating its anniversary.
Yeah.
We went to go see the film Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which you had seen previously, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the Monty Python movies.
Yeah. And I will say I've seen it several times as well. This is definitely the first time that I've gotten to see any of them in the theater.
Yeah, me too. Of course.
Mostly because, when the last time they were in the theater, at least, during their regular running times, they've had other events like this. I was either not born or a very young child.
Yeah.
And you were definitely not born when they originally came out. But I will say this is part of, if anybody has never heard of Fathom events, it's definitely something that would be worth checking out. Obviously, we're not sponsored by Fathom event. We're not sponsored by anything.
No.
But this is just something that I have been aware of for a few years now, and I just looked it up. And there are actually quite a few coming up this year that we're rather interested in. In fact, one or two of them are actually films that are on our list.
Yes.
And then even a couple that should be on our list.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to be checking those out. But I encourage you guys. You can just type in Fathom events on your browser, and it will bring up, and you can see what is going to be playing. More than we're in Arkansas, and we found a theater that had one. So more than likely, you will be able to find a theater within your area that is playing one of these events. They're a lot of fun. A lot of Studio Ghibli films coming up.
I'm so excited for Ghibli Fest.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of really good stuff to check out. So I encourage you guys to do that. But I think we should go ahead and jump right into the film that we're talking about today. What do you think, Aaron?
Yes, me too.
All right. So, like I said, we are talking about the 2009 Australian stop motion animated. The Wikipedia calls it a tragicomedy. I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Mary and Max. It was written and directed by Adam Elliott, and stars amongst many others Toni Collette, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and apparently Eric Bana actually voices one of the characters. I will say this is one of those films, like I said, when it popped up last time, I had no idea
Me either.
about this film. I did know upon looking up the title that it was stop motion. I mean, you can just tell that from any sort of, stills, production photos. But I had no clue what we were in store for. But just to kind of give a brief synopsis. So the film takes place, or at least it begins in the 70s.
Right.
See, this is saying 76. I'm pretty sure it at least started in 75. But
that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in like the mid 70s. And it basically follows a young girl from Australia by the name of Mary Daisy Dinkle. And she is very much, kind of, has a hard time making friends, gets picked on a lot, things like that. And so she just randomly pulls a name from a telephone book in America. She is interested in how people from America are like. Right. And so she ends up picking out the name and address of a 44-year-old Jewish atheist named Max, who, if we thought that Mary had a hard time making friends, Max even more so. Max is, it's pretty self-evident pretty quickly that he's neurodivergent.
Oh yeah.
Later on, he is diagnosed with Asperger's, and he just really doesn't understand the world at all.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think we've all kind of felt the way Max does a little bit here and there, but they end up, striking a pen pal friendship through the mail.
And it's not weird.
No, I mean, yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. Aaron says that because his mother just immediately assumed that it was going to get weird.
Which
I mean,
is slightly fair.
I will say,
but also
typically anything that depicts those types of relationships that are set in an older time, they're more likely to be innocuous than, anything set now. And it probably would have been, like a, like some kind of creepy situation. I mean, I will say she knew from the start that she was conversing with an adult human. Didn't think that she was talking to a child. But yeah, no, I mean, the use of stop motion is interesting in this because at least in America, I love the stop motion itself.
It was really smooth.
But, in America, there's kind of
way less.
I mean, there aren't very many companies that do it. At least, I don't know of any. I mean, there are probably like a couple of American companies, but the more well-known ones are not American companies that do stop motion. But the main thing I'm getting at with talking about stop motion is that America specifically seems to just assume that anything that is not live action is going to be for children. I mean, there's definitely obviously in the last couple of decades, animation has definitely opened up to a more adult market and things like that. But there's still kind of an assumption by most viewers when they see any sort of animation, be it, drawn, computer, stop motion, that it is going to be for children.
It's really funny too to me because that's not what cartoons were for originally.
No. Well, I mean, even over here in America, the Flintstones were not created for kids. They were created to be basically an animated version of the Honeymooners. So yeah, it's really just over the years it's been kind of pigeonholed into this spot. And I will say, if you go into Mary and Max expecting it to be a kids movie, number one, you probably won't expect, as my sister did, that the relationship between Mary and Max is going to be inappropriate. Number two, I honestly believe that him being neurodivergent kind of pushed me away from any sort of thought in that direction. Not to say that that isn't possible, but just the way it was presented, it felt like he felt very childlike to me. And from the fact that it's a male relationship, I felt like we were going to be pretty safe. But yeah, this film, like I said, if you expect it to be a kids movie or really even a family film, you're in for quite a shock. Because while I will say I do think that the film is sweet at times, it's also very dark. But it's also very honest.
It is.
And it visits a lot of very hard subjects. And like I said, I think it deals with them very well. Obviously, neither one of us had any idea what this film was before we started watching it.
Completely blind.
So, and you never even heard of it, right? Yeah. So, what were your thoughts about this film?
It was one of those movies where you like it. There's parts of it that you're like, oh, damn. And then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I really like that.
Okay.
I liked it a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, it was dark, but it was really, like you said, honest. It was clear cut.
Yeah.
And just accurate overall. Mm-hmm. There are also more lighthearted parts of it that I enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes you on a ride.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like I said, we have a character in Max that is not only neurodivergent, but he obviously has very high anxiety.
Yes.
He has an anxiety disorder to the point where every arrival, at least of the first couple of Mary's letters, sends him into a bit of a panic attack.
Yes.
Often before he even knows what's in them.
Yeah.
So just, anything, when he first gets her first letter, he has a bit of an episode, and it takes him, I think, like a day before he finally reads it.
Yeah.
And then, they have very honest conversations. Eventually he ends up, after he gets his diagnosis, because one of the letters that she sends him, she is a young preteen girl whose parents really don't have any sort of good relationship with her. Her father is very much in his own world. And her mother is a barely functional alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so, they're not talking to her about, things that she has obvious questions about. She starts out the film believing that children are found in the bottom of beer mugs.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the reasons that she decides to start this pen pal relationship, because she wants to ask where children come from in America. And what I love is how innocent Max is about it, because he believes that they're laid by eggs that are then sat on by either rabbis, nuns, or if you're an atheist, sex workers.
Yeah.
So it's the film is definitely very imaginative, but at one point, she, having not been talked to by her parents, starts getting very wrong-headed ideas about
Yeah.
sex from kids at school, and of course she wants to ask Max about
Yeah,
it.
because that's like the only positive figure, really.
The
outside of,
only
like,
positive adult figure that she
Yeah.
has in her life, and the thing is, obviously she recognizes that her parents aren't really going to be much help in this, so she goes to the only positive adult figure that she thinks might talk to her about it, and that's Max. And Max, unfortunately, is
Yeah.
very uncomfortable with the subject, and he ends up being institutionalized for
8 months.
for a while because of this situation, and eventually,
And only then they diagnose him, which
right,
is
and
ridiculous.
that's when he gets his well, I mean, this is the 70s.
I know.
Mental health, I mean, there was a stigma on any sort of mental difference.
Yeah.
People that just went to go see psychologists just to talk about their day-to-day issues were stigmatized. There was the idea that there was just something wrong with you, so that was just not a commonplace thing. And I mean, definitely for Max, who it was raised looked like very Orthodox Jewish. I don't think they would have taken him to any sort of specialist as a child, and he definitely was not. I mean, he did have a psychologist that he was seeing already at that time.
Yes.
But again, things like, I
Yeah.
mean,
He's
I don't
essentially-
want to get political, but there's a reason that people are like, oh, there's so many more cases of autism now. Yeah, it's not that they didn't exist. They just weren't being diagnosed, morons, because people had a stigma about it. And so people weren't getting checked out for these things. Nothing's causing it. It's just they've always been here. It's just now we know about it.
Yeah. Plus, half the time, he was kind of just fat shaming Max.
Well, yeah, I was about to say his doctor was not very good.
No.
To the point where when they did find out about his diagnosis, basically, was telling him that they were going to find a cure.
Yeah.
There's not a cure for Asperger's.
You don't need a cure.
Exactly. It's not a disease. It is a different way of looking at the world. It is a different perspective.
That's why I don't like the word disability. It's not a disability.
It's just a difference. It's a different way of being, a different way of thinking.
Disorder.
Right.
Like,
no. No, it's none of those things. So, and honestly, that's actually the crux of something that happens later, because when Mary finds out about his diagnosis, she decides to kind of dedicate herself to studying people with different brain chemistry and things like that. But again, this is in the 70s and 80s. So she's being told the ways of thinking about mental health that were popular back then, which again were all about, let's fix a thing that's not a problem.
Yeah. And you can
let's fix people that are different. Yeah.
I was probably like the only one who actually looked at it. But like, if you look at some of the book titles, they kind of starts out like okay-ish, even though the book options weren't that good, and then it just gets progressively worse.
Oh, the books that she was reading, you mean?
The titles of the books.
Sure.
And then it just gets progressively worse.
Right.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, you feel bad for Mary, because obviously she's doing this because she wants to help her friend.
Yeah.
But, like I said, mental health was not in a place that it is now, where it's more accepting.
Mhm.
You know, it was very much, you know, let's try to make everybody like everybody else type of thinking. And so she writes a book basically talking about, you know, Asperger's. And I mean, I will say she did use him as a case study, and I don't know, it was never revealed whether or not he said that she could do that.
I don't think so.
I think it was very much a surprise to him.
Yeah.
And that's another reason that, you know, he gets mad, because she very much bases this book, this wrong-headed book about Asperger's, bases it on her relationship with him without ever getting his permission. And so, you know, their relationship takes a dip for a little while, and, you know, her life starts to spiral, to the point where, you know, they haven't talked in a very long time. And
a year or so.
Yeah. And, you know, she, at the same time that she's dealing with that, discovers that the man that she married, which was, you know, had come out.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah. I mean, it did seem at times that he was flirting with her, but, you know, there were definitely signs that he preferred men. But yeah, I mean, you know, even in the letter that he wrote, you know, he said that a large part of him leaving was that she had lost herself.
Yes.
So, you know, it's possible that he was bi. You know, because he you know, said that he did love her at a time. But, you know, then she had kind of lost herself. I mean, it didn't seem really like he was talking to her very much.
No.
You know, so there's that. But yeah, she gets into a very dark place. And then, you know, Max kind of comes to a realization about, you know, what her motives or intentions were and things like that. And it does end up forgiving her. And so, you know, we get to see this relationship play out. And like I said, it's complicated and interesting and dark and sweet. And it's just real. Is what it is. And the film ends with Mary going to, we don't usually give things away, but I don't know. I feel like this one, I do think you should see it. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. But I also want to talk about it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she goes to visit him, and I'm assuming that they had been talking about her coming to see, you know, coming to meet. And she shows up, and it turns out that he died the morning that she arrived.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, seems peaceful. And she just kind of sits there with her new baby and just kind of sits with him. And like I said, it's dark and sad, but also kind of sweet.
It's bittersweet.
Yeah, very, very much so. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about this film?
Len.
Oh, the her neighbor from across the way.
That was amazing.
Yeah, she has a neighbor who's agoraphobic.
Yes. Originally homophobic.
Yes. She mistakenly thinks it's called homophobia when she's a child. Eventually she you know, I think it's because he never comes out of his home. But yeah. But yeah, he, you know, he's less a character and more like a plot beat.
Yeah,
we more like kind of see him through the corners of like shades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever hear him. Well, no, I think we do hear him speak once or twice.
Yeah,
but it's not very consequential. But yeah, I mean, there's just, you know, it's such an odd but interesting film. Like I said, it's, definitely worth checking out, I think. And the entire thing is narrated, which kind of gives it this kind of dark fairy tale feeling.
Yeah.
But it's all narrated by Barry Humphries, who is, best known for writing and stage and television, and has I think he's definitely better known in Australia, but I definitely know that I have seen him in a couple of things, and definitely heard his voice because it was very familiar to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else that you want to mention before we move on?
No, not that I can think of.
All right. Well, want to go ahead and remind you how you can get into contact with us. So, of course, you can contact us on all of our socials at The Flying Cow Pod. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to let us know what you think about everything that we've got going on all of that stuff. All right. So, Aaron, why don't you go ahead and pull up the wheel and let us know what the next film that we're going to be talking about. First of all, are we doing seen or unseen?
Let's do unseen.
All right, we're going to do another unseen. So, you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and spin that wheel.
It's spinning.
Tick, tick, tick,
Okay.
tick, 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 tick. Boom. What do we get?
The Matrix.
The Matrix. That's right. I forget you haven't seen that.
It's the problem. I know there's so many movies I know about.
Sure.
I haven't actually gotten to see.
Right. Yeah, no, I honestly, I feel similarly. All right. So yes, next time we will be talking about The Matrix. So make sure to check that episode out. But until that time, moo.